Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Halidom Hotspot, your one-stop shop for all things Dragalia Lost. As always, I'm your host, Orthodox, and joining me, we have our co-host, LERART,
Hello.
and we have our co-host, GLACE.
It's me.
And this week, on episode 7, we have a very special guest, and his name is Dragalia Foundry.
Hey everyone, it's awesome to be here.
We're glad to have you, Foundry. Thanks for coming on to the podcast. And we have a traditional thing that we do for all of our guests as we get started on the podcast. So if you could be so kind as to tell us, for those that, of course, do not know who you are, which I'd be hard-pressed to see, but I'm sure there are some new faces hearing about you for the first time, your favorite unit, when you started playing, and maybe a little bit of your current impressions on how the game is now and the direction it's taking.
All right. Well, thank you for the welcome. As you said, I'm Dragalia Foundry. I have a YouTube channel by the same name, and I tend to just go by Foundry. I started playing this game, I guess you could sort of say before launch. Like as soon as the digest dropped, I started making YouTube videos about it because I was really excited and I didn't really see anyone else creating content around it. And I think it's maybe because it's a mobile title, it didn't get that shine that other things get when they're featured in a Nintendo Direct. Actually, I think that's what it was before the game came out. And so I kind of made these like Game Explain style analysis videos where I just went through the trailers and was trying to scan them for footage, and have been playing since day one. That's really when my interest started, was even with the Direct. But yeah, have been playing since day one. Have a YouTube channel where I try to make videos just giving my impressions on the game. Have tried to take a more casual approach, but I would say I'm an endgame player at this point, just having played as long as I have. And as far as my favorite units, I have a couple of them. One of them is Eleonora, and so my viewers probably know this, but depending on when you started watching, you may not know this. Back in the day, your first unit that you summoned for free used to be a 4-star, and Eleonora just happened to be the first unit I ever summoned, and she was basically my free 4-star unit. And so that's how she kind of just became my mascot and favorite unit for a while. But the other one, who's the icon of my channel right now, is Pietro. And I took a liking to Pietro, I would say, because he's kind of symbolic of when I got more into the endgame content in Dragalia. So I used him for Hybernhilda's Trial back when that came out in February 2019. Feels like a ways off.
Yeah.
Yeah, on standard difficulty, and it was a challenge back then, and like that got me really into the more endgame side of things. So I really ended up liking Pietro after that, and I just like his optimistic attitude about things. And as for my current impressions on the game, I'm pretty hyped about the second anniversary. I think that there's going to be hopefully some new influx of players for the second anniversary, and the big balance changes and the big updates to the game that are coming give me a lot of hope about the future. I've been kind of really chill with my Dragalia progression the past couple months. It's been kind of predictable, like the monthly schedule, one new exciting event, one kind of filler event, the same types of banners. So it's been kind of low-key recently, but for the anniversary, I think they're going to mix things up, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's definitely going to be really exciting. Something we can talk about in a little bit too is the 12-hour-long maintenance that they have announced in anticipation of the anniversary. So that much is very, very exciting. So I'm glad to hear that you're excited and have stuck with the game as long as you have. It's really awesome to have a YouTuber from day one stick with it and keep grinding and rolling with the game. So I want to say, in the first podcast I mentioned I'd started back on the Fire Emblem collab, and immediately I went to YouTube and I was looking to see what YouTubers were out at the time, and you were the first YouTuber that I subscribed to. So you definitely helped me out as well as a new player. So for that much, I thank you, Foundry. It was the series that I really enjoyed was the character analysis videos that you did with like Fleur. And I think there was Alphonse at the time too that had come up for there. I listened to those like podcasts while I was doing an internship. So I quickly consumed a lot of a lot of the library that you had at the time. I think that was 2019 was the first collab, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, we do actually have a question too, as well from one of the patrons. Miss is over on my Discord here, and his name is the Fireman. And he had a question directly for you, Foundry. He wanted to know which took longer, the recording and editing and uploading of the worm print guide, or unaugmenting all the prints and then re-augmenting each and every print on a scale from 1 to 10.
That's a good question. I would have to say probably the re-augmenting and unaugmenting all my prints. The funny thing about it is, and I would put that at like an 8 and maybe the recording at like a 5. But the funny thing about it is it didn't actually take that long to move around all the augments. But ever since then, I've had like no rupees. So I'm always having to play more. And like there's constant time that I'm putting in now to this day because I've moved around so many augments on my characters and worm prints because I like to experiment with builds. And for that video in particular, I put 10 worm prints for a worm print that I thought was like a 10 out of 10, and then 9 if there were 9. And so I tried to rank every worm print, and I wanted to do it a second time, and I was like, I have no more rupees. I can't make the same type of video. So I ended up doing it a different way. But to what you said earlier, thanks for mentioning those spotlights. That's awesome. And I would say like with the worm print guide and those, one thing that's really shifted a lot for me is it used to be like there wasn't a lot of information about the game in general. So I tried my best to kind of give my take on things, but ultimately it was not that well informed in some cases. Like back in the day, a new banner came out and it's like, oh, it's Lily. She can freeze. That must be awesome. You can freeze things in IO. That's great.
Right.
And now every time we get new information, it's like, well, what are the modifiers? What are the SP costs? How does it do in the simulator? So I think that because of that, I've kind of drifted away from trying to be overly analytical because I just don't think I can do it to the level of fidelity that like is just out there nowadays, which I think is great because depending on what vantage point you want to take, like if you want more of just like a casual take on a banner or analysis, that's available. But if you want to go into the weeds and like, is this character going to be better than me for Marth or not, or better for me than Marth or not? You can find that as well if you just want to look for like optimization. Absolutely,
yeah. Things have definitely gotten a lot more complex since the beginning. I think initially, if I'm not mistaken, because this was before my time, it was 1 weapon, 1 worm print, and 1 dragon. I think the 2 worm print update was something that had come out right when I started playing. With the Fire Emblem collab and the 1.5 anniversary update. Is that correct?
It was with the half anniversary update, if I recall correctly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the half anniversary.
Yeah, I will say I want to backtrack where I personally have not really been a purveyor of Foundry's work, but I kind of wish I did when I was starting out because I started on Fire Emblem as well, but I didn't start reaching end game until the Monster Hunter collab. And that was a lot of time in between, and that was me struggling on the main Reddit Discord server trying to piece together information. So I really wish I envy players now who can follow Foundry's content and just easily be able to get going. You're doing a great service, man.
Yeah, definitely. I don't see that there's too many YouTubers out there doing beginner's guides, if any. for how to progress in the game, or and there's a lot of hard decisions that have to get made in order to help players kind of determine where they should be spending their resources early on, right? Eldwater is very difficult to come by early on, and then there's also some weird resources like mana is difficult to come by early on. That was a huge gate for me in the beginning, was where do I spend my mana to upgrade my mana circles. So
yeah, no doubt. And it's one of those things that's tricky because like Dragalia is really it's really adaptive. Like every month we get version updates and things change, and so like the old information that you put out there gets outdated pretty quickly. But right back at you, because one thing I've always found challenging is like, how do I make these endgame guides? These fights are like kind of complicated. There's all these mechanics, and I've seen some of your endgame guides, Orthodox. Those are pretty sweet.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, those are. I haven't done one in a hot minute now, and I've had a few requests for more guides to come out. But those are probably my favorite to put together. They also do take a lot of time and a lot of research in the back. I think preparing for the video ends up taking longer than the actual editing portions. So yeah, I think the first guide I did was Ciela, and then that one ended up having a pretty good splash over on the subreddit. And that kind of got me excited. I was really happy to see such a positive community reaction and opinion to the video. It was my first time really working with any editing software. So I made the template in that video, for those that have seen the video. I made that in OBS as like a stream overlay, and then I like put all my clips together. It took me, I'm embarrassed, it took me 70 hours of work to put it together from start to finish, including the clips and the editing and the text, because I had no idea. I was on YouTube like looking up how to add text to the to the editing software.
Oh my God.
So it has gotten easier since. So but definitely a shout out to all of the YouTube tutorials that have been watched. There's just a lot of awesome content creators out there that make a lot of helpful how-tos. So definitely was appreciative of that. And kind of back on the idea that we were talking about earlier, I think since we were mentioning new players and starting the game, talking about our advice on where new players could be, or where they should go, or what they should be doing in the game, probably pre-anniversary. If you guys want to chat a little bit about that.
Sure. I mean, I can definitely jump in. I would say like the most important thing when you're first starting off is, take it easy, enjoy yourself, kick back a little bit, and check out the campaign. Like, I think that actually has significantly improved as far as providing an initial gateway. Like, there are a lot of things that eventually you'll take for granted in this game. Like, once you learn how to kind of tap the screen right to do a force strike or do a roll in just the right way, like eventually it just becomes muscle memory. But when you first start playing, some of those things can feel a little bit tricky, to pull off some of the moves, or just navigating and controlling your character via the touch screen. But by playing the campaign, you're kind of in an environment where it's not too hard until you get until maybe chapter 5 or 6. So you can kind of enjoy the environments and the bosses. And if you want to, you can read through the story. If you're somebody who's not as interested, you can also skip through the story and they'll give you a little synopsis, like a paragraph of what happened. But that was one of the things that really drew me in to begin with. And I was shocked. Back at launch, there were 6 chapters in the game, and it's a ton of content to go through. And now there's even more chapters. But I would say getting through maybe like chapter 6 or 7 of the campaign is a really good first step. And along the way, there are plenty of in-game tutorials to help you as well.
I think it's crazy that they had 6 chapters to start the game, and those chapters were pretty lengthy. I think when I went through to play initially, it took me most of the day to seriously sit down, read the story, and play through those 6 chapters. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was maybe up to whichever chapter is the one where Mim defends the party from Mars. That was the final chapter in the list of chapters that when I had joined. I think that's chapter 7, maybe chapter 8. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, definitely a lot of content, and I feel a lot of it has changed, right? The Imperial Onslaught was the endgame content at that time, and now we have shifted to Agito and I guess a little bit of High Dragons. I kind of wanted to mention something that helped me a ton, like a lot, as a new player attempting to break into endgame. And this is something that I actually learned on your server, Foundry. One of your members, I don't remember who, had helped me adjust my settings and my control scheme. And it helped me as Noel to bait Master Mercury more appropriately so that I was able to get my first clear. And the change was to turn my roll sensitivity down to 1, so that's the lowest setting possible, and that allows you to walk or run without accidentally rolling, because the roll has a set distance. And so for the bubble mechanic in High Mercury, if you're at the wrong spot, you can roll completely through the bubble. And then you're in a panic state because, the waterfall's about to come down and you don't want to get bopped by it. So if you lower the roll sensitivity, it gives you more of the ability to walk a few steps and then pause. So that was one change that really helped me with my micro game and controlling my characters. And the other thing was turning off the quick turns, the 180 and the 90 degree.
Mm-hmm.
I had both of those on because I thought they were good, and it turned out that they were messing me up as a player more than they were helping me. So I don't know, how are your guys' controls set? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me on that? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
My dodge sensitivity is the minimum possible, it's 1. And I turned off the quick turn too for both 180 and 90 degrees.
Okay, and then Glace, how do you play?
I think I turned off the 90 degree, but I keep the 180 on because I always like the dash dance at the end of quests.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the dash dance. It's funny.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I haven't really changed my settings, honestly. I just kind of dealt with it, and because I was too stubborn to change it.
Okay. You should
I just haven't thought about it.
Definitely try it, and then get back to us and see if it has improved your gameplay, or if it's at this point if you're already a master, then maybe the sensitivity might not, make a difference for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, this is a really technical, almost like a minutia of the game. But I do think it actually can kind of help your overall experience, because one of the barriers for a lot of players is like, oh, if only Dragalia was on Switch, I would love to play it, just because I'm not down with the touch controls. And what I always think about is Nintendo's influence on the game. I think back to Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, which at the time I was like, oh, I'm not about this. This is not the Link that I like and love to play.
Mm-hmm.
But after kind of spending some time with them, I was like, but actually they kind of did it in a way that kind of works. And I think Dragalia is very similar, where when you kind of get a feel for it and do some of these little settings changes, it does start to feel a lot more natural. And for me, I have the 90 and 180 turned off, like most of y'all have both turned off, or one of them turned off. And then my sensitivity is just the default. But the other thing I would suggest is they added something called a combat log. And if you're new to the game, you'll probably notice it, because it's basically really big text pop-ups that are happening constantly during a battle. You can turn that off, and then you can see more of the screen. And it's kind of cool that they added it. There are some times when it's helpful to kind of get a readout of what's happening. But a lot of times it also just kind of like obstructs your screen. So I think by default it's on, but you can turn it off.
Yes, definitely. I think, and that goes back to my previous recording. It is difficult to get in Ciela. I think I had it on in the recording, so my workaround was to have zoomed into the footage to have it closer. But completely turning it off is a much better idea for visual clarity for new players. I think. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I do think it can be useful if you could I'm pretty sure you can adjust it to like only show like enemy or ally or both.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine like like if you're a healer, you can see like do they still have like their healing buffs on them, or like if you're like a punisher, you can make sure like they still have their debuff on them, but then you can always check the enemy health bar for that.
Right.
You know, as an in-game player, I've just gotten used to being able just to flick my eyes up to the health bar and see what if they have like burn on them or whatever for Crom. And,
yeah, definitely.
Like, okay, so I can use S2 now, and just stuff like that. But like I bet for a newer player, it can be much harder. But the combat lag does go fast for in-game fights, just because of all the skills going on.
Yeah.
It really is a mixed bag, in my opinion, for how you go about it.
Yeah, I think there's another thing to Foundry's point for visual clarity. The game will often try to run in the best graphical settings, which in most cases when you see that setting, you're like, well, yeah, that makes sense. I have the newest iPhone or, the newest Samsung Galaxy, right? However, if you turn down the graphics setting, you actually reduce the amount of visual clutter, as you will no longer see the skills and effects of your allies. It'll be more focused on what you're doing as a player, and that is a good basis to start. Because I know initially this is something that had been referenced to me when I started playing the game. Veronica came out, and she had insanely flashy skills, to the point where nobody could see Alphonse in the trial, and then he would just delete somebody, right?
I know, I heard about that. That was funny.
I think that was over on the subreddit where someone was like, oh, well, if you turn your graphics down, then it won't show the other player's skills. And that was not intuitive to me at all, to think that by turning my graphics setting down, I would have better visual clarity. But as soon as I did it, I cleared. Because I could see what was going on. I actually was able to see the boss and see what I was doing. So that definitely helped me out a ton as well as a new player.
I would say there's 3 other settings. I don't know exactly what they're called, but it's in a similar vein. They're basically camera settings. So one of them makes the screen shake whenever you do like really cool actiony, skills or 4 strikes and stuff, or things like that. Another one is it zooms in on you when you do a shapeshift. And I think the third one is something similar, like maybe zoom in on you when you do a skill. You can turn those off also if you want to have like a fixed camera, so it's not... this helps a lot in raids. So like you're not really super zoomed in on your character, and you can actually see the whole map on the raid. But honestly, really, I feel like for the story, you could just go for it. Like, just dive in, start playing, and then like the settings things, they do help. And if you're struggling to control it all during the story, I would suggest like go take a look at those. But to what Orthodox said, I think it's like more so when you're kind of at that point where you're like, let me think about the end game, and more like those little edges that can make it more fun and smoother to play for you.
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely does make a difference, especially when you're starting to push the limits of the game and getting to the harder content where the rewards start to be, very desirable. Like getting your first Agito weapon, or maybe even Chimera weapon. I know that's probably the first hurdle for new players. Will be getting Chimera weapons from the Void battles, and then they kind of start approaching High Dragons or Agitos as well. So, yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts or advice they would like to share with the newer players or players entering for the anniversary?
Not.
Go on.
No, you can go.
Okay. personally, I think uh, save your stones, like sunlight stones.
That's a good one.
That is something like I didn't do, and I regret, especially like the stones we get from Mercurial Gauntlet. Um, I used my stones on like Marishiten and Long Long, and I really regret it. uh, because like uh, while those are not bad dragons, I feel like usually especially now with Gala dragons, you should always save your stones for Gala dragons. And like I remember I spent stones on Molong because of Linyu, and I don't even use her anymore. And he's also not even the best dragon for her. So especially for those like niche dragons like Long Long or I don't know like Azazel, unless you're 100% sure you're gonna use the character that prefers the dragon, I'd say save your stones for the Gala dragon that is coming up or something like that. Don't go spending your stones on like a good dragon, a random good dragon that you have. Just save your stones, use them on the like dragons that everyone uses, like Mars or Thor, or like Cat or maybe Shinobi. Shinobi's one of the few dragons I think it's still worth spending stones. Maybe like Chungus, the bunny dragon.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But like overall, just save your stones. If you're starting the game just now, there's is no reason for you to have a mob dragon. You can clear everything you need to with partially unbinded dragons or maybe the 4-star dragons. So just save your stones for now.
That's a good point.
Yeah, do a little bit of research of what dragons are worth spending stones, and then you can spend your stones.
Yeah, definitely. And well, the thing too is we do have the change that, and this is probably my favorite change that's come this year, is dragons now have an upgradable passive on every unbind.
Yeah.
So that was an amazing quality of life change that Cygames decided to do when, in reality, the precedent that they had set is the passive would get better at the second unbind, and then finally finish at the max unbind for Worm Prince. So,
And dragons did they wouldn't change until you mob that, until you mob the dragon.
right, yeah.
Like-
So
0 unbind through 3 unbind were the same passive.
absolutely, yeah. And we're seeing that now with like Horus, for example. Horus is 17% attack speed and like 40 or 45% crit at 3 unbind. So at 2 unbind he's 15%, which is crazy because the difference between the attack rate of 20% and 17 or even 15 is almost negligible. So yeah.
Also, like worth mentioning, there are now the dragon essence. So, if the dragon can be farmed on the campaign to get the dragon essences, do not spend dragon stones on him.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And that list is forever updating. We actually had an update to the list come pretty quick in order to see what dragons are on the list for Max Unbinding through Draconic Essence. It's in your campaign list, and then in the top right there's a little orb that you can select, and it'll show you the list of all available Draconic Essences.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a really good point. Initially, I didn't have a 5-star flame dragon, and I had used Ifrit for a while, the classic T-pose dragon Ifrit. And unfortunately for me, and this is a very sad story, but it definitely builds to your point, LERART, I dream summoned Cerberus. Okay. And then I sunk 4 sunstones on her, right? suddenly
Yeah.
we had free summons, and I pulled 3 Cerberuses back to back in those free summons a week after I used 4 Sunstones on her.
That hurts.
So
Wow.
very, very painful, but I can attest that I have 2 Max Unbound Cerberuses, both of which I am not using. So it's it is a further statement for any players that are thinking about using Sunstones, or any resources for that matter. The reference that I always employ is, if you use the resource, will you get immediate gratification from the resource? AKA, if you use your Sunstones on a dragon, if you use Damascus ingots on a 5-star weapon, will that resource, and I guess golden keys for Worm Prince, will that resource immediately allow you to clear content that you were unable to do so before? And if the answer is yes, then chances are it's well spent resources. And if answer is no, or I'm not sure, then you should definitely hold on to it. Because, Sunstones aren't cheap. If you look at the monetary value of a Sunstone, they're $40 in USD.
They're also really rare.
Yes.
It's hard to get a hand on them.
I think I am... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's such a good point. And like, if all of this sounds, crazy to you, so basically, to give a little bit of a breakdown, dragons get stronger the more you unbind them, and there are different ways to do that. So those Sunstones are basically like a wild card, right? That lets you unbind any 5-star dragon of your choice. And those essences we're talking about are basically like some dragons you can actually farm up essences from playing quests in the campaign. And then that is another way to get unbinds on the dragons. So I also want to give an example, because I think this is such a good point you made, LERART. For me, it was like 7 months of playing Dragalia before I had 1 max unbound 5-star dragon, like from the gacha pool, from the summoning pool. Nowadays, because of the essences and things like that, you can probably get it within like your first month. But I think that shows like you don't really need to have that level of power to clear a lot of the content in the game. If you want to rush down the end game, sure. But as LERART said, like, do a little bit of research. There are some dragons that are preferred. They're generally Gala dragons. But yeah, like back in the day, I remember I played for like 6 months with no 5-star gacha dragon at all. And then finally I had enough Sunlight Stones to unbind Dragon Yule Jeanne d'Arc. And she was like my first dragon in like March after the game had come out in September. But just to like kind of broaden the point as well, I would say in general, like what Orthodox said, it applies to all resources. Another big area this applies is when it comes to Wormite and when it comes to summoning currency.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and like in general, the anniversary, it's probably going to be pretty generous. You're going to get like your free 10 summons every day. That's at least a strong possibility because that happened last year. And so those are free rolls. You definitely want to do those. But a lot of people like to wait toward the end of banners, or wait to see what you get with your free rolls before you start just popping off with your tenfolds. Like, I think one of the traps you can fall into with Dragalia is like, if you are really compulsive with your summoning, like every time you get 1200 Wormite or a tenfold voucher, you just like do a tenfold summon. Then later on future summon showcases, you often don't have like the level of resources that you want if you really want to go for a particular character you like. So I would say you're probably going to have like a lot of what you need to succeed just from free summons and stuff with the anniversary, to where honestly you could save a pretty large stash of the Wormite you're getting from playing the campaign or reading stories or just logging in, and possibly put that to better use, a couple months down the road when you don't have access to as much.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And I do attest to that point. I have a horror story with Wormite. And the first anniversary, when they did all the galas on Radom, right? Which they probably will do again. And I'm very much praying that they introduce some spirals for the weaker Gala units, maybe the Year 1 Galas. And this is kind of what makes it even
Year
worse.
1 Galas would, like... Sorry for cutting you
Oh,
off,
no,
but
no, go
that
ahead.
would give Gala CLEO a spiral.
Well,
Just-
okay, within reason, right? I mean, we
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
shouldn't go too wild, but she isn't Shadow Element, so, anything's possible. For her, I guess it'd be higher mods, but that's scary because that would mean higher percentages for, like, her defense down and for her buff zone, right?
Yeah.
Which is terrifying, by the way, because remember, the big reason why Gala CLEO is so incredible is due to the fact that she offers buffs and debuffs, and they are percentages. They are not hard stats, which means as our teams grow and as our accounts grow, her value as a support grows.
Yeah.
So, back to the wormiting issue that I had. Oh my gosh, I look back on it and I cringe because it was a very silly decision that I made. I had all the Gala units at that current time, and the Gala unit that I was missing was none other than Gala Ranzel. And I think it was like 14,000 Wormite left in the bank. I went hog wild on Gala Uden's banner. I pulled him. It took me 40,000 Wormite to pull him.
Damn.
In the process, I pulled Gala Cerise. So at the time, I was ecstatic. I really liked playing bows. And I was like, you know what, fine. I pulled Gala Cerise. I pulled Gala Uden. It's the anniversary. So be it. The remaining 14,000 Wormite that I had, I looked at the banner and I said, you know what? Gala Ranzel's on rate up. I'm just going to use it. If I pull him, I have all the Gala units. I can say my collection is completed, which, again, as a disclaimer, in a gacha game, you should never, ever, ever decide to have a full collection.
Yeah.
Just, you have to be comfortable with missing units. The only thing I was able to show for 15,000 Wormite on that banner was 2 Max Unbound Take Mikazuchis.
Oh.
Which
That's so specific.
is so...
That's gotta hurt.
Guys,
Yeah.
getting pity rate broken on Take Mikazuchi, like 6 times in a row, it breaks you as an individual. And,
Gosh.
I was very sad about that, and I just kept going. I had that sunken cost fallacy, right, where I was like, well, I'm already going wild on it, so why not? And then to add salt to the wound, right, do you boys remember who the new Halloween unit was, which came, mind you, directly after Anniversary? And,
Oh man.
and for those that are unaware, my favorite unit in the game is Mim, which I'm sure she's very fan favorite-y. There's probably a lot of people that appreciate Mim as a character.
Yeah.
I had 4,000 Wormite to my name when she released.
Oh my god.
I used the 4,000 Wormite, and I immediately went to, with the tickets and whatever else I had, immediately went to a pity rate of 8.5%,
Ooh.
no break, and I was like, okay, so be it. And I dug into the bank, which, by the way, again, this is why you save your Wormite, because Diamantium is very expensive.
Yeah.
Very expensive. It's like, what, $25 for a tenfold? If I'm
20 to 25, yeah.
So I pity broke on it, and it was a dupe Naveed. So that was very depressing. And by the end of the banner, I knew she was limited, and I knew that she would not probably appear until next Halloween. Surprise, by the way, she actually appeared in June, Halloween in June. That's kind of silly.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my gosh, she's not gonna, show up, and I really want her as a unit, and I spent all my Wormite on Ranzel. And then I proceeded to spend $80, which, mind you, I'm a college student, so I don't have that kind of money.
Oh.
Why?
And I pulled her.
But
Off
at
those,
what cost?
But here's the thing that's crazy, right? The reason why I ended up spending $80 was that's how much money it took to get me from 4% to 9% pity. And then when I
no.
finally broke, it was one rainbow, and it was Halloween Mim.
It's
At least you got her.
yeah.
Guys, at
The
what
only
cost?
reason I'm sorry, Foundry. I'm so sorry, Foundry, but the only reason that is not that sad, it's because of Foundry's story with Galaceres.
Oh no.
Yeah, this is actually.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about that
Yes.
if y'all want. It's an
Absolutely.
anniversary memory.
Go ahead.
But I think the lesson overall for new players is the game is very generous with the Wormite, but you want to spend it wisely, right?
Yeah.
Because if you do decide to spend, Diamantium is costly, and things are priced in such a way that, like, if you are going to spend, thank you for supporting the game. That's awesome. I hope you get something good. But the main reason to spend is not for pure random summoning purposes. It's because you're buying packs from the shop that like give you something of a guaranteed value. So like some of those packs that you can buy, you know, give you a guaranteed dragon unbind of your choice in the form of a sunlight stone. Or on occasion, they'll have packs where you can dream summon and pick a character of your choice and get a tenfold out of it as well. So that's like the lesson and the warning is like, anytime you're just getting Diamantium to burn more tenfolds on a banner, like things have gone into really dark territory.
Absolutely.
And I was there, so I really wanted Galaceres. I tried to get her when she came out in January of the year, of last year, and I think I spent like 40,000 Wormite. Like I had a pretty big stash I had saved up to try to get her, and could not get her. Ultimately, I waited until the anniversary, and then they had this banner where it was like, to what Ortho said, it was basically like 4 different Gala characters, 4 or 5 past Gala characters, all with a 0.2% base rate, which is lower than normal on an individual Gala. They're like at 0.5%. So basically, I think I spent like all of my Wormite at the time, which I believe was a similar amount to what I had spent back in January, or maybe a little bit more. And I didn't get her. I ended up buying like all of the anniversary packs, and I still did not get her.
Oh,
Now,
no.
granted, luckily I have an income and I have a job. I'm not a college student. And I have the good grace of making content for the game. So it's kind of like, it's okay. It's more okay than if I were just like whaling, but it was like my first delve into like pure whale territory for the game. Because the first 5 months I played the game, I was strictly free to play. And then the next, until the anniversary, I bought packs only for that dream summon, which is when you can pick a specific character. So I only bought like a couple of packs in the game, like the beginner packs, which are pretty good value for the Diamantium you can get. But that was what broke me, and so much regret. But also it was kind of liberating at the same time, because it's very dangerous to have that collector mentality, for sure. But honestly, I do really like the characters in DL. Like I'm not very meta motivated, but I think if you're free to play, you have to be a little bit more mindful about meta and power. That kind of opened me up to like, now I'm a little bit more willing to just like summon for some characters that I like, and go a little bit more crazy with things, and with the idea that like then I can make some videos about them and like share that with people who aren't able to summon those characters. So unfortunately, I didn't end up getting Cerise. So despite all of that, there was no rainbow at the end. But it was okay experience. But it also coincided. It coincided with time attack happening in the game, which was a kind of another pain point for me.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, right, Cerise was more of a meta pick as well, with time attack. I believe Cerise actually did pretty well in time attack rounds.
Honestly, I don't even know that she was, but I just wanted her because she was in one of the very first raid events in the game with Melsa, and they were basically like BFFs in that story, and it was super adorable. And I was like, I gotta get me a Cerise. I have a Melsa. Yeah, I don't know. I just liked her. Like, I don't even think she was actually that good at the time. She was pretty good in the flame element, but The Blacksmith Sisters had come out by then, which had kind of taken the world by storm. Ramona and Reina, I believe, were already out at that time, and they were pretty good, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, Ramona was definitely very, very good. I believe in regards to time attack, the fastest clear time was something along the lines of Marth, Halloween Mim, and then like Ramona or Reina? I forget. But it was actually, funnily enough, using Marth's last boost, which, by the way, was still as powerful as ever before we got 2 usages out of it. But yeah, time attack is that was, I want to say, directly after Halloween. So November, was it? November or October?
So.
Yeah, November.
That was
November.
the dark time of the like the darkest.
Yeah. Would you guys ever think that Psy Games would think about bringing it back for maybe Agito?
No.
What do you think?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Have you seen what they've done to Tartarus?
That's true.
Oh my god.
Well, not just Tartarus, but the
No.
twins.
Yeah.
You
The
know?
twins.
Tartarus
yeah.
is the most recent example. Twins, of course. Twins had a really efficient cheese strat, like not even like a couple days after it was released.
Right.
Tartarus is the same way.
I have a good story from Time Attack, especially because Foundry is here.
Go ahead.
At the time trial was a thing, I couldn't clear the end game. I was not an end game player. And I was close to quitting because it was like exactly the time I thought about starting to get into end game. But like I couldn't anymore because the pubs are like, And I was really close to quitting. I was so close to like uninstalling the game and just never seeing anything about Dragalia anymore. And I remember the reason I didn't quit was actually Foundry. Because he had like some videos about like a more casual approach at the time of time trial. And I started to have like a more casual mind to the game. Like I was already a casual, but I wanted to like get into the end game, So like I like after I watched some of the Foundry videos, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna like enjoy the event, enjoy the story, or like whatever.
Yeah.
And that was the reason I didn't quit. So thank you for that, Foundry. I really enjoy Dragalia now.
Thank you for sharing that. And like, I'm not gonna lie, that was probably the closest I came to not wanting to continue on with Dragalia.
Yeah.
Which, looking back, I don't know. Like, honestly, part of me is kind of curious, like morbidly curious about what it would be like if it happened today. But I think what I noticed at the time, this is now getting into like DL history segment or something, but it's kind of fun to think back about all that's happened in the game's life, and like the end game really changed a lot with time attack. But it wasn't just time attack. It was, now we had expert high dragons, we had master high dragons, and they actually had an incentive to doing them because you got really powerful weapons. Mm-hmm. And back then there were no chimera tech weapons. They just didn't exist. So like there was not a bridge, there was not a good weapon that you can get that's like good enough for events and good enough to kind of like casually participate in, say the standard difficulties of some of these fights and enjoy it. And so it was a really big hurdle, I feel like, that I'm glad the game has kind of overcome, just because essentially we got dropped into these really difficult fights, no revive system. I mean, like, roles did not have iframes, and we kind of had to just like fend for ourselves. And the thing that I think saddened me a little bit was that's when I started to see a lot more splintering off of players, because it just became so much more efficient. Like, now that the end game was actually about getting weapons, that have a value, well, let me play with the same 3 people who I know are really good at this, and so that we can get it done. And Time Attack also furthered that attitude. But prior to that, like with the original High Dragon Trials, there was almost like a mythical status. Like, I remember when I first started playing the game, I was like, Heimdgard Swimmer's Trial, I don't have that unlocked. Like, how do I see that on my homepage? Is that real, or is this something that people are like, making up that's somehow on their home screen? And it wasn't until January, the game came out in September, it wasn't until January that I was able to clear Heimdgard Swimmer's Trial, and it felt like an accomplishment just to do it once, right? And same thing with Hilda, that came out in December. I didn't clear it until I think February or late January. But after that, I think there were so many players who were at a point of progress in the game that like they were more so gunning for like, I'm gonna not only clear this, I'm gonna clear it on day 1, or like I'm gonna clear it in the first hour that it releases. And ever since then, I think like there hasn't been any end game content that released where it was like a whole day or something that people actually couldn't clear it and nobody could figure out how to do it, or the stats weren't up to par with it. Which I don't know if it's good or bad, but like that was a big shift with the Time Attack as well. Is like now it wasn't just about doing it once; it was about farming it and like grinding it to get these weapons, and then the weapons would make it easier to get faster times and whatnot. Which wasn't really for me. But what I decided, to circle back to what you said, LERART, was like, I could kind of still just do what I was doing before. And there was that fear of missing out because there were some really good rewards with the Time Attack or time trials. But at the same time, like, I think it was a good example of where you have to kind of put your happiness first. And like, it's not always about doing the most efficient thing. And sometimes it's just like, you have to do what you find fun. And so if that's not fun for you, you don't have to participate in it. But it definitely caused quite a ruckus among different parts of the community.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of
ahead,
fun
Glace.
stuff, why don't we go over some of our favorite stuff in the game, like our favorite events and stuff?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. If you want to get started first, Glace, as you have been the suggester of the idea.
All right.
Your favorite event, or is there something in particular that you wanted to share as a favorite, maybe beyond Patia? Maybe Patia's favorite dragon.
No, that's for Halidom at night, if I will.
Oh yes,
but,
understandable.
I am a bit biased, but I will say is that the Monster Hunter collab event has been one of my favorites as an avid Monster Hunter fan. The fact that the bosses, the Rathless bosses, didn't have any of like the red markers, and so you just had to know what their moveset were, was really great and really true to Monster Hunter. And just small stuff like that, just like I loved it.
Yeah.
I want Monster Hunter 2.
I hope. I mean, that would mean spirals for the primary characters, and that would mean more Monster Hunter alts for our previous or current characters.
Please, Monster Hunter Patia.
So, yeah, that collab was probably my favorite, especially with the music and all the sound effects that they added in to make it really feel like it was a Monster Hunter game.
Yeah.
Those little details, especially with the well done steaks as stamina pots, that really made me smile. That much was a lot of fun. And their characters are just really fun to play.
Yeah.
All of them are. I was really fortunate, really blessed to have pulled all 3.
Yeah, same.
And all of their Force Strike charging kits. And this extra layer of a mechanic that was added to the game with their introduction of, mobile force striking and multiple empowered levels or higher charges of force striking has been extremely fun to play. So,
I got every Monster Hunter unit, but I was saving so hard for that. I had like 90k War Might.
wow.
And I ended up with only like 28k by the end of it.
Yeah,
But-
the
but I
collabs.
I
got
spent everything.
yeah, I got everyone at least.
Definitely. Foundry, what was your favorite event that you played in?
Well, I've played them all. I've seen them all. But probably, so it's really tough. I think I definitely have some nostalgia for the early days because just like things didn't really work as smoothly as they do today. So like, I'm thinking of a raid earlier this year, which I think was a great raid in a lot of ways. Awesome music, but Scars of the Syndicate.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Like, if y'all remember that raid, so sorry for dunking on this raid, but like, I'm gonna use this as an example of something I didn't like. But love the music, but what I didn't like about that was like the raid battle's over in a snap because the units are too powerful. We're over prepared for that. So my fondest memories are when there was like a struggle, like, you know, Fraganoth back in the day, or Omega Kronos Nyx, which we're going to get to see pretty soon, which is exciting. But
Very excited.
last year, man, that was tough for a lot of players. So I loved the sense of like trying to band together. But as for recent raids, I'm actually gonna have to give a shout out to Time Worn Torment. I really like that raid. Out of all the events that have come out since the first anniversary, that might be my favorite. I like the music, but I really like the production value in a sense. Like, one thing that really, this is such a minor thing, but one thing I really like is when like the boss battle in a raid event, not just the raid boss, but like the regular boss, is actually kind of special. And in that event, you as Wukong had to fight against Radiant Xuanzang, and for the boss battle. And then for the raid battle, you fought against Mei Wang, and he had some really cool hit patterns and stuff. So yeah, I think that might be my favorite from this year at least.
Yeah.
That one was a lot of fun with all the other minor nods that they did to Dragon Ball. I think I mentioned this with Devin. But, you know, like the English VA, Brian also voicing Vegeta, and having a very similar character style for Zubagie and Vegeta, where they're both, you know, strong, manly men that love their wives, you know, that whole character trope. And yeah, oh, and of course Wukong, right, being you know, off of Son Goku type style, with the Monkey God and all that. So, and the music. I don't know if you knew this, Foundry, but the band that did the music for Time Worn Torment also does OPs and other styles for Dragon Ball. So that much was really, really cool.
That's something I learned on the podcast, actually. So yeah, it was sweet. I mean, I loved Zubache as a character. Like, he's on my Dream Summon list because I didn't get him. But I don't know. I think it just like hit at the right time for me. They introduced some new things which were kind of nice, like Wukong. You could get him to 50 nodes for free, so you didn't have to spend extra resources. And the story felt very wholesome. Like, I mean, there's some other really good ones as well. So no disrespect to, you know, Doomsday Getaway, but I don't know. That one kind of just hit for me.
That was a good one, yeah. I was thinking back to... I was kind of laughing in my head. I was thinking back to Time Worn Torment. That was where the infamous MS name appeared for the first day of the event.
Right? Yes.
I do remember that. That was, in retrospect, right? It was a very silly mistake. Understandable, right? But at the same time, it brought us a lot of joy in the community to put MS name as people's users and things like that. So,
not
I
since
still see people like that.
Yeah, I love it.
I even in pubs, I'll see like MS underscored and like whatever their name is in all caps, or just sometimes just MS name, and it's really funny.
Yeah, it's like a wholesome blooper, you know, like you know that it's not done maliciously, and it's done more so as you know, I was there for this part of the event, and this, you know, little blunder and growth in Dragalia's lifespan. So. Yeah, I think I still have the screenshot of it. I'll have to find it, but yeah.
Yeah, I have to.
For me, I was like, wait a minute. What happened to the story? I was reading this. So, Yeah.
For me, I don't know. I think I really, really liked Doomsday Getaway. It was such a cool event.
I didn't.
But like, the raid itself, it was pretty basic. But what I really liked was how they introduced the story, like
Mhm.
one chapter per day. That was really cool. But overall, I think my favorite event is either Monster Hunter or Fractured Futures.
Oh yes.
Because I remember when Fractured Futures happened, as I said, like I was not an endgame player, but I did have 5-star weapons for everyone, and I think I had like in Shadow I had 2 or 3 mob Shadow Dragons.
Oh wow.
5-star, yeah. So like I had the gear for endgame, I just never tried because I was not confident.
Mhm.
But I had the gear, right? So when Fractured Futures happened, I thought I could clear it no problem, but Omega actually took me a while. Omega solo,
Yeah, that was
and
difficult.
that was my favorite fight in DL period. The Omega solo, like I'm hoping they rerun, like they introduce something like Omega 2 solo. That's what I'm hoping they do, because my experience with the Omega Solo on the first year was so good that I really want a Omega 2 Solo on the rerun. Which I don't think it will happen, but I'm hoping it will.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, as we'll throw on the wish list pile there.
That was like,
yes.
yeah, we had like raid boosts introduced.
Uh-huh.
I remember we had like, oh, we're giving you can select a core 5-star weapon.
Yeah, that was
And
pretty
at the
big.
time, that was the best weapon you could get. So
Mhm.
when that happened, I was like, this is crazy. Like we're getting like a free core 5-star.
Yeah.
Which brings me like, do you guys think the new event, the next the new anniversary event will give you like a, I don't know, a Nagito unbind or a 6-star ingot?
I could see it.
Yeah.
I can
mean-
see 6-star ingot, especially considering how like with the changes for the weapons and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely see them giving an ingot, especially considering just all the materials
Yeah.
for Agitos. I can see just like a simple unbind being good. You know, just giving like it gives newer players a really big boost for their weapons, and then even in-game players, they just throw some little bone. It saves them, like 10 runs, like
Yeah.
5 to 10 runs, and that's good.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
good
you,
for
you
the
do have to
farming.
be able to clear. They did make a lot of quality of life changes, right? Standard Agito and Expert Agito do award you enough materials on first clear to
Yeah.
craft a weapon. But to your point about the new raid in general, I was thinking about it. Remember how in Fractured Futures, Chronos Nyx is the fusion of all 5 of the
Yeah,
Great
that was
Rings?
so cool. Yeah.
We have a new raid that's confirmed for the anniversary that they haven't quite named yet, right? My prediction, and this is of course just all theory, the last end game boss for the event, right, was Chronos Nyx, which is the fusion of the 5 high dragons, which, by the way, were the premier end game content of the game at the anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Agito has now taken that place, and there are 5 of them.
Yeah.
So, what are the chances that our new raid boss is a fusion of those 5
The Agito, yeah. That
Like
would be
some
cool.
kind of Power Rangers stuff, that'd be cool. But you know what we also got in that raid? We also got an alternative form of Zodiark.
We did. True.
And I've mentioned this in our previous podcast with Devin, but like we really want like playable Volk. So like, I'm just saying that'd be pretty cool if we got like a welfare reformed Volk or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be pretty cool. And he did say, I can't say anything, so...
Yeah.
I mean, that's always NDA, but that's also NDA. You
Right.
know, it
Yeah.
goes it's both ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. We will
But,
have to wait and see on that.
But
Around the topic.
coming back to the favorite event, what was yours, Orthodox?
My favorite event, man, I think in terms of a challenge, the hardest event will probably be my favorite, and that was Fractured Futures.
Yeah.
I think bringing in my favorite welfare character, right, my favorite free character being Audric, he has an incredible allure and design. You know, his story was a large layer of depth, something that like really added to the event at the time, to like see what had happened in his world and his timeline, and then also being the cornerstone for my team, for me to beat the Omega solo and the Omega co-op. As I've said before, I used him with Phoenix to keep my team healthy 24/7 with the regen from Phoenix's dragon skill, and that's what allowed me to clear Omega Chronos Nyx with 2 seconds remaining.
Oh yeah,
for the solo.
nice.
Nice.
And for me, right, because I had started in April and I was just barely an endgame player. This was even before the High Dragon weapons and like, you know, everything that had happened. I used my free weapon to get him a 5-star IO sword, and I went at it. I think I bashed my face into that fight for like 5 hours straight. I was like laying in bed with my phone light on, no other light, just like going at it. And I was trying my best to get the clear, and when I finally did, I was just like so excited. I had like that little kid excitement where I was like jumping up and down, you know, like.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I definitely can relate.
yes.
Yeah, I remember like I had CLEO, but I didn't use her because I wanted the defense and the HP co-op. So I was using, I think it was Yasuo, Curran, Botan, and who was it? A healer, like a Heimwald, I think. So, and I remember like I was in a call with my ex-girlfriend when I cleared.
Oh, nice.
And I was so excited, like I screamed, and she was, what was that?
Yeah.
That was such a cool event. I honestly, as much as I want, I cannot see them surpassing the Fractured Futures event on year 2.
You just wait. You never know.
Yeah.
They did
I hope
say,
they-
and
I
Okada
hope
did
they do.
repeat, it will be bigger than last year. So
Yeah.
that could just be a statement, right?
Yeah.
Or it could
what
be
if
reality.
what if just the boss is bigger?
Imagine the character
Chrono
model
was-
is 1 pixel
Yeah.
bigger.
The Chronos, like, it was enormous. I think it was the biggest model we've seen.
That
So-
and
He was like
they
a
gave us 2
like
different
a
raids.
JRPG boss.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
like, what if it's just a bigger boss?
Yeah. As long as the boss has a JoJo pose, that's all I care about. You know. So
I did say that Monster Hunter was my favorite, you know, all that, but Fractured Futures did bring along a playable Patia, so I have to give it like the props for that.
It did. And that banner will be
Well-
back. And as we did kind of mention off camera, that banner coming back does offer for any new player the ability and chance to pull for Patia on rate up. So
Especially because she's a 4-star.
yeah. So if that banner does go live, that is something to consider. She should be fairly easy to pick up with minimal investment.
Shilling aside for, you know, the Church of Patia or whatever, Patia is a really great cheap unit as a 4-star, and she is.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd say she is absolutely busted as like a pure buffer
Oh yeah.
because of her build.
I think
when spiraled.
she's one of the best spirals we ever got.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I would
There's a
definitely
She's
agree.
reason.
so good.
I like to say that there's a reason why Ryozen did not get a spiral when Tartarus came out, but yet Patia has one. It's because
Yeah.
Patia is basically like light Ryo, like Shadow Ryozen. That's basically what
Yeah.
she is.
Absolutely.
And like, especially with the release of Brother in Arms, she
Yes.
got
Mhm.
so much better.
Yeah. Speaking of Ryozen, Foundry made a video on Ryozen, and I actually had my Ryozen at like 45 or 46 nodes, solely
no.
because of Foundry.
What did I say? What did I convince you of?
You were talking about like the benefits of having like a low SP cost defense buff on like S1. Like I don't think it's a terribly low. I think it's like 4. I think it's 4K. I think for his lance, but it's like but it's a substantial buff. So I remember going back to your affinity for the defensive stat in general. As you'd mentioned off camera, saying that you appreciated the defensive stat making the team tankier. I think you had brought to light a mention of the 4 Ryozun comp, the the OG double buff comp, if you will, right?
Right.
And
yeah, it was funny.
I saw that.
That was before High Zodiark.
Yes.
So we didn't know.
Right. So I saw that and I was like, oh, gotta do it. And I like promoted Ryozun that day. And yeah, I have him at like 45, and he might be the key to doing a auto Zodiark comp. So
I know
Definitely
he's
is the
kind of a
key
key to standard Tartarus.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's oh yes. Which, by the way, it was not a bad investment. It was a very good investment due to that fact, because Ryozun lead on standard Tartarus is awesome. It's so good. So yeah, I think as soon as Tartarus released, I did that with him as a lead and Tiki, and then I think Patia also slid in there as well. And put it on 99 runs, and plugged my phone in, went to bed, woke up in the morning, had like 200 plus silver pieces.
Nice. I really got to perfect my auto comp, because I've just been doing it on co-op and burning wings.
Yes. Although I would say, because people usually do pre-grinds for Agito, right? I would, if you haven't done the pre-grind for Ciela, I would heavily recommend holding off. Because if we're getting a 12-hour long patch for maintenance, I'm almost certain, I would bet all of my Wormite, 70,000 Wormite on it, right, that there is a good chance we are getting a new game mode, and if it's not a new game mode, we'll be getting a different style of something to grind. And if that all doesn't happen, we'll probably get triple drops. And if we get triple drops, and they don't change the way that the IO function works with triple dropping, that was one of the most efficient ways to farm Eldwater.
Yeah.
So, a couple things to note, I guess, on that. But for now, since we're so close to anniversary, I would just say save everything. Just do your dailies and just be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing with Agito is, like, when the Master Agito comes out, they add a survival bonus to Expert. So unless you really want to clear on day one and like pre-grind materials or something, it's better to just wait until Master comes out, because then you're getting more materials for every run you do.
Oh, that's also a very good point. Yes, yeah.
So like for Ciela is one of those fights where like there's a very reliable auto comp for Expert, but why auto now when you can auto later and you get even more materials?
Yeah, that's very true. There was always a method to holding off, right? I mean, there is never a downside to spending resources later, and there is always a downside to spending resources now. So, I guess to your point, right, the trade-off has to matter. You know, what can you accomplish now? Is that worth the resources?
Yeah, I think that's generally the case. Like, if you wait for special events and stuff, you get a pretty good deal. But I have to say, I feel like I cheated you because my Ryozun is not promoted.
Oh no! Foundry, no! How could you do this? You know, I have no regrets. I have no regrets.
I have a reliable Zodiark auto for Expert and semi-auto for Master, and they don't use Ryozun.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. You'll have to.
I think as Retribution, Foundry should do it right now. You should go and 45 note at least.
I would never make
No.
Only if I can.
Only if he wishes to do so. But also, you might have some
Eldwater.
extra Eldwater when anniversary summons come around. So, if when you do have some surplus, you know, go ahead and at me on Twitter or even on YouTube, and just let me know. You know. But
so
Yes, go ahead.
I like the concept of Ryozen, but then I saw Patia and the anniversary, and I was like, I was won over. I was like, this is the best of Ryozen, but it's Patia, who I like from the campaign, and
Right.
for other reasons. And but I do like tanky characters in general. Like I'm a Julieta fan, I'm a Reina fan. It's kind of interesting. Like we're maybe on the cusp, or maybe it's already happened, but like it feels there has been somewhat of a shift. We were really in a world for several months of like everything's about affliction Punisher. Now there's a lot more going on with double buffs, and I think especially with like the popularity of Auto, these survival characters kind of have more of a role than they used to in some ways.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And we do have, as they call, the Brother in Arms meta. We're seeing break damage is much more valuable and relevant, and that is applicable on the Brother in Arms print. And then we also have the 13% strength double buff component as well, which to Patia and I guess to Ryozen's benefit, that inevitably buffs and improves their strength addition. So for Ryozen, it's just the 13% that Brother in Arms offers, but for Patia, it makes that 15 become 28%. So, and that's per buff, which is crazy because with shared skills, everybody can bring Patia. Yeah, they can put Patia in their back pocket and as a skill 3 or skill 4, and just repeatedly, activate those double buffs.
And as a unit herself, Patty has access to the Shadow Agito weapons, which just increase attack rate, which means she gets her skills even faster.
Which is just
that with
wild. Which
bonkers.
is wild.
Why did they give that the Shadow?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other animal, but the general consensus for that seems to be to help all the other Shadow units go more in line with CLEO. Which, to that as well, we should see a massive rebalance for all the other elements to catch up in power as well. So we'll have to wait.
The main reason I think the
maintenance takes so long.
Like they're rebalancing 4 entire elements.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest reason it's gonna be 12 hours. Of course, I think they're gonna do a lot of things besides the rebalance of the elements, but I think the main thing is gonna be the element rebalance, for it to be so big, because they're changing like 4/5 of the roster, basically, and probably
Mega Man.
Yeah, hopefully. Please buff my favorite characters, side games, all of them.
Yes.
Speaking of which, like rebalance of an element, quick thing I wanted to say, it's how like light was maybe the worst element, and now with Galathor and like I feel like we had the tree and the Fafnirs, but Thor changed everything in light. Light was such a bad element, but with Thor is like made the element good now. Like it's not amazing, it's not as good as Shadow or even Flame in my opinion, but it's definitely not the worst element anymore. It's definitely like better than water, with the Agito weapon giving you like skill haste, a good damage skill, and a Dragon Gauge feel.
Oh, absolutely.
And with Thor being so good, I think light is now a distant element. So like, the thing I thought was, I was thinking before, like maybe we're gonna just change the damage mods on the different elements on the rebalance. But seeing how Thor affected the entire element so much, one thing I could see is maybe changing a little bit. Like, of course, I still think that they're gonna change the mods, but maybe changing a little bit of the dragons with the dragon essences. Like, they give you like we were theorizing on spirals with dragons because of the essences, right? So what I thought was maybe the one of the biggest impacts is gonna be like Agni getting a like 60% strength and 40% skill damage, or maybe like Zephyr getting a 60% strength and like 50% skill damage. That is gonna like just throw Agni away, I think. But that's just like because it's a universal thing for the element. It affects everyone in the element, like Thor did. I could see something like that happening. I don't think it's likely, but it's one of the possibilities I think of rebalancing an entire element.
Right. I definitely think because I did some testing with Zero Unbound. I'm sorry, not Hastor, Horus, and
Yeah.
he is significantly worse than
Everyone.
just well than Mars, really. And the thing is like, um, you know, even on the unit that he was designed for, which is the
Not good.
Rhea, right, or Incognito Nefaria.
Yeah.
It is still a 5,000 DPS loss than if you just were to use Mars.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, people could argue, like, oh, well, you know, the dragon's not meant for personal DPS, it's more meant for buffers and for healers or things like that. But at the same time, I think the real reason is that whatever new mechanic we'll be getting for dragons as a rebalance, he most likely is in line for that rebalance. And we'll probably see him be more valuable after the anniversary update goes live.
Hopefully. Yeah. Because I was checking the sim. The only unit that got an increase in DPS was Emma.
Right.
Everyone else is better off with Galamars.
Yeah, definitely. We will have to wait and see. But yeah, guys, it has been really awesome conversation. I hate to cut it short, but we're coming up on time.
Yep.
So I would like to transition into the art spotlight for this week. We have an artist that was recommended by Foundry. So the artist today is Ryo Suzuki. I'm gonna pull up the first piece here
Ryo
for you
Suzuki.
guys.
Yeah.
Yes, and I hope I'm saying it right. I don't want to butcher.
I believe it's Ryo Suzuki.
I like your accent, Glaze.
I'm taking Japanese one, okay? Give me some slack.
Yes. No. No harm. No foul. Of course, it's all in love. I am not being sarcastic. But their first
Me
piece
too,
here
no
is
homo.
of Gala Elisan, and it is incredibly well done. I actually did not know of their work until it had been recommended as of last week, and I love it. It really captures Ellie, and especially I mean everything about it. The background too is just phenomenal. We have of course a close up of her as well.
Yeah, Ryo is someone who I've seen share their artwork of Dragalia for a while now, and it was this recent piece of Ellie that reminded me of like some of the past work that they had worked on. And one thing I really like is, as you mentioned, the background. Like, it just feels very, very complete. It's something that you don't really get to see a lot of. Like, there's not, landscapes out there of the world of Alberia too often, or at least not that I'm aware of. So it's character focused, but at the same time it feels like Ellie's in her own world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we have other pieces right from them from the past. This one is the
This is my
Hinamotoans.
favorite. Yeah.
And I knew right away, Laura, you were gonna say I love it because who is serving the 4 original Hinamotoans?
Yeah.
It's Mitsuba.
Like 3 of my favorite characters are there, which is like Yasu, Eris, and Mitsuba. I love the Hinamoto gang. I actually have every character that is from Hinamoto, and I love all of them. So like that is my favorite piece, personally.
Yeah, this
Me
is
too.
extremely well done. Mitsuba is adorable, and this is also a shout out to when Foundry went for Mitsuba. I saw there was like I think a two-parter to that for
Yeah.
the summon. So, yeah, and I kind of wish I had pulled for Mitsuba because then she ended up being such a powerhouse. For, and still is. She's an incredible unit.
Mhm.
I have never even used her in any of those like special clears, but similar to LERART, she spoke to me, and she was just awesome. And I'm also a huge Addis fan, and just like this whole vibe on this piece is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have one final piece from them. And this is, of course, the transformation for Ayaha and Otaha. And what really captivates me on this piece is the design of these transparent butterflies. So I really, really like that. And the coloration is just, it's really, really well done. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ryo
Yeah.
he's not aware of that because he doesn't even know who I am. But he's
Not yet.
my boy, dude. I gotta yeah. I really like their art, and yeah.
Yeah, so guys, for the 3 pieces that we have, I'll have a link in the description to them, as well as a link to Ryo's Twitter. It's at Ryo, R-Y-O, Suzuki, S-U-Z-U-K-I, art. So go ahead and show them some love over on Twitter, like the pieces, retweet them, do all the good things that you guys do. And guys, thanks so much for coming on, Foundry. Thank you tenfold for coming on for a special podcast, a look back of year 2, and all the helpful advice that you do for new players. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast.
Yes, and guys, if you are not subscribed to Foundry, as he said earlier in the podcast, he has his own YouTube. We will have a link for that in the description below. And then I will also actually have one of Foundry's latest videos, the What is Dragalia Lost? If you have not seen that video, you must. And for all of your friends that you are looking to get into the game for the anniversary, this is the perfect time to come back. Definitely show Foundry's video to them. It is extremely well done, and it's extremely well articulated to help explain what exactly is the essence of Dragalia Lost. So thanks again, Foundry, for making that. It's definitely going to be an important sharing piece to help get new players into the game.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about it, and I just hope we can get more people on board, because I feel like Dragalia is such a hidden gem, and that's why I was excited to be on the podcast as well, because I think things like this really add to the community.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Foundry. We definitely appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun to record with these guys. So GLACE and LERART have been a lot of fun to work with. So I always look forward to the recording sessions with these guys. So, and that being said, thank you,
You
LERART
flatter
and
us.
GLACE. Please, guys, join GLACE's church. Discord link in the description below. Follow him on Twitter. Commission more Patia art for GLACE, of course, and for yourselves, because Patia is just the best character ever. And follow LERART on Twitter, please, guys.
Please.
We had a LERART hype train last episode. I saw some of you guys commenting that, so thank you so much. Please, we have to build LERART's clout and improve his Twitter to be as much as possible. So thank you again, guys, for coming onto the podcast. Link will be in the description below for the Discord. And go ahead and let us know in the comments below what you guys are excited for anniversary. And yeah, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Thank you so much, guys, for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, it's me, Orthodox. I hope you all enjoyed that video. I'd like to take this moment to thank my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to make such amazing content. And a super special thank you to my patron Lucas for becoming a Baby Brunhilde's bestie. So thank you so much. I greatly appreciate your support. And if you haven't, consider supporting me on Patreon. A little bit goes a long way. We've even got a special membership lounge and VC for supporters of the channel. Thanks so much, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.